What's going on YouTube? This is another synergy guide, this time for the all-loved Aqua. Now, Aqua is a portion of the element, tribe, legion, whatever. And its big thing is that it's actually a pretty good early game unit. It helps out a lot on 7 and 8. Can get you through a lot with the early game fire elementals, etc. But the real bonus with fire elementals is the Rogue Wave. Rogue Wave is the thing that's going to be most utilized in almost every composition for the sole fact that it amplifies ability damage. Now, it amplifies ability damage taken on any enemy unit by 14% for base units, 7% for bosses. It does not stack, and it is itself an ability damage. Now, the key thing here is that it stacks with all ability damage. So, depending on what you have for units, it can be either mediocre to really, really good. If you're going like an AoE build such as Flower, Pyro, even like a Elite Archer, it can make the build from meh to pretty usable, especially late game. Fire Elemental though is usually the opener. If you're going to go like with any Aqua opening, Fire Elemental opens, it can go 4 to 5 workers pretty easily, really good all the way up until basically 5 and 6. You just need some help. But yeah, the big thing is the ability damage stacking late game helps with almost every ability damage unit in the game. Traditionally, you're going to want to use it for area of effect units, but it can work theoretically with things like King Claw Slam, which deals an ability damage of, I think it's, what is it? 75% damage, 75 damage. So you get 14% of 75 damage on the units it's buffed. Something like Berserker or Radiant Halo makes boss killing a lot better, right? Like it makes it so that it scales a lot faster. Things like Millennium, Egg, Infiltrator aren't really great, right? Because the Millennium only does 35 impact damage in an area whenever it kills a unit. And then Infiltrator only does ability damage when it's boosted, right? So you're limited in what it helps with. Egg only helps when it pops. Buzz only helps when it dies, and it's still a very small amount. So keep in mind, Aqua ability damage is really great, but you need to have a unit to really make it work. The rule of thumb that I've always heard is somewhere around 2 to 3 Rogue Waves is enough to cover most situations where you need ability damage buffing. In most cases, the Fire Elemental is a better damage dealer for Aqua, and its ability to do 25 magic damage over 1 second whenever it gets hit is also pretty solid. I think it stacks up to 40 times. So if you have just a ton of Fire Elementals and have the ability damage buff, it's pretty good. It's decent damage. It actually is surprisingly good late game if you have a lot of them. And the biggest thing with the Fire Elementals is they kill backline really easily without having something like a Serpent. If you have a lot of Fire Elementals, a lot of Rogue Waves, they'll snipe the backline. A question from chat though, isn't Egg reflect damage for the ability damage? Yes, but at the end of the day, the Egg is just really bad ability damage. It just doesn't make sense to utilize it in this case. If you're looking for like a good example of reflect damage, look no farther than Bunker Haven. Bunker Haven with Rogue Wave is actually pretty solid because it does a base damage plus a reflection damage, right? So you're no matter what going to get some sort of bonus on top of it. Haven especially, because you go from a 15 plus 10% damage taken to 20 plus 15 plus 10, then down to 20 plus 15, right? So that makes quite a big difference. I actually think realistically Bunk is in a similar vein to either Flower or Pyro in terms of its ability damage being greatly underappreciated, especially for a tank. Rogue Wave synergizes very, very well with Banana Bunk. But for the most part, you're looking at area of effect units, otherwise even early game units like Violet. So like Violet plus Rogue Wave on 7 and 8 is a lot stronger than just Violet by itself because it amplifies that splash damage that it does, right? It's just an all-around good synergy unit. I wouldn't say you should always take Aqua, but there's a lot of roles that Aqua makes a lot of sense in. I would just say it always comes down to what you get with it. If you get something like Starcaller and Steed with Villain or Magician or anything like that, even Sorcerer, you can utilize Rogue Wave plus that to make the already good damage of 500 plus 1% max pure health damage plus 15% of that, or 14% of that, and then add in Magician and you're looking at, or Villain, and you're looking at a thing that's going to do 1,000 plus damage per hit, right? That's freaking insane per auto cast. You just need to make sure you're actually utilizing the ability damage. The easiest way to check is if you hover over a unit like this, it'll tell you if it does ability damage. Under the Thorns passive, it says ability damage. Under the Pyro, or under the Flower, it says ability damage. Boar also has ability damage. I would say Boar is actually a little bit better of a unit than, say, like, I don't know, Millennium, just because it does quite a large range of ability damage. The downside is Boar hits right away, so you're not going to be able to get Rogue Wave splashes out beforehand unless you have like a ton of Rogue Waves in the top right or top left, which at that point doesn't really make sense, right? You're wasting a bunch of value because those units will die most of the time before they really even get to use much of their value. So I'd say Aqua's Aqua Rogue Wave for big area of effect units. Otherwise, amplifying single target unit damage such as Zerker, Radiant Halo, Disciple, Elite Archer is probably your best go-to. But if you have to, things like Zeus, which do quite a bit of ability damage with, say, like a Disciple buff, are pretty solid. I would just be wary of things like Buzz or Priestess. They're not very great. Though Aqua's early game and late game do buff themselves. So there's some synergy there just within the unit itself. But, you know, kind of is what it is. There's a lot of starts that allow you to go like Baby Aqua plus Violet early. Or it's Bone Warrior plus a Baby Aqua. A lot of things like that that can make Aqua pretty utilizable early game to help you hold on 3, etc. So, good question from Old Hasu in chat. How much of them should we build? Like you give a great rule of thumb on Steeds, 3 Steeds, or 1 Pegasus for 1 mana unit. For Aquas, Fire Elementals build as many as you want. If you want to use Fire Elementals as a damage dealer, they stack really well. I think it's 40 stacks is how much they can stack without it like being a problem, right? Before you start wasting stacks. 40 stacks is a ton, right? You need a lot of Fire Elementals to get that many stacks. With something like Rogue Wave, I've always been told 2 to 3, maybe 4 Rogue Waves, and then you're kind of like overdoing it. If you look at the DPS of this, right, it's 48 versus 32, but you add in that extra, 3 units getting 25 ability damage over the next second, and I think Fire Elemental almost doubles the damage of a Rogue Wave on a lot of waves, especially when magic damage is powerful. But for the most part, Fire Elemental, build as many as you want. Rogue Waves, I'd say less than 5. You're probably fine with up to about 5 at the literal maximum late game. And then Aqua Spirits, just place them if you need a decent little chunky arcane boy. That's kind of how I look at them. I use a lot of times like on 7 or 8, if I have these guys and I'm worried about getting Ascend, I will place an Aqua in front of them to help kind of slow things down. But that's kind of it. Keep in mind what you got on your board. Aquas are really solid, especially for a tier 2. And kind of just go from there. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Otherwise, I will catch you guys later. Peace.